Hey there, Capricorn rising signs of the zodiac. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of November 2025. Your chart ruler, Saturn. Let's talk about Saturn before we get into the planets in transits, aspects, lunations, grand trines. It's jam-packed. I'm a little late uploading the Capricorn rising signs horoscope for the month of November. I've been very, very busy, but we are here. Okay, so Saturn is your chart ruler if you're a Capricorn rising sign. And Saturn for you is transiting in the zodiac sign of Pisces in your natal third house. So your natal third house is like stepping outside your front door and you go into the community. It's where you hang with your siblings and your extended family members. It's how you commute, how you get around, how you travel, and where you learn education. You learn from people and experiences in your environment. So your chart ruler Saturn is in the natal third house, opening up the month of November in a retrograde phase. We also have in the natal third house of Pisces, with your chart ruler Saturn retrograde, planet Neptune. So Neptune brings a different dynamic to your natal third house. Neptune breaks up routine that goes on around your daily environments. And with Neptune dissolving connections and creating more opportunities for you to connect with creative minded people is key with Neptune also in your natal third house with chart ruler Saturn. So because Saturn is your ruling planet, you're familiar with Saturn. You understand Saturn. Saturn is about being really patient and chill. You know what you've got to do on a daily round and you just get to it. You're pretty active and pretty immersive in the natal third house where you want to connect with people. And this month, your chart ruler Saturn stations direct. And that's going to be a really important moment for you as a Capricorn rising sign, signaling a new change regarding you and how you connect with others and the natal third house. And that's going to be an important shift for you. And moving onwards through the rest of the year, moving into 2026, your chart ruler will continue being in the zodiac sign of Pisces. So pretty significant month for Capricorn rising signs. On the 5th of November, we are having our first lunation of the month, the full moon in Taurus, and I'm celebrating my second year of being on YouTube and would like to say thank you. If you are a regular listener to my content, you are so appreciated. Really does mean a lot to me that people tune into the cosmos and the wisdom of the planets in transits and how we individually connect with these planets that are thousands of miles away from us, but somehow magically seem to hit the mark in our own individual paths. Okay, very exciting month coming up for the Capricorn rising signs with your chart ruler, Saturn stationing to go direct, leaving Pisces behind, ending a 2-year journey, which I'm sure has been extremely pendulum like for the Capricorn rising signs. Okay, let's talk about the planets in transits. On the 4th, we have Mars leaving your natal 11th house of Scorpio and ingressing into Sagittarius, your natal 12th house, until December 15. So Mars will be in Sagittarius for the whole month of November. And on the outset of the month, you have Mercury also in your natal 12th house of Sagittarius co-present. And poor old Mercury is in detriment, finding it very difficult to believe that things can improve. So Mercury, the planet that rules our mind and how we think, is making us possibly a little bit hesitant or confident in what we do behind closed doors and in our own private ideas. However, with Mars now moving in on the 4th for the whole month, things are going to escalate pretty quickly, and that's going to help Mercury out. So Mars is going to be helping Mercury out in the month of November. And we need to talk about your natal 12th house and what this means. Well, Mars is our planet of action, our will, our drive. What are we attracted to? We go for. When Mars gives us that eye for, there's the target, I've got to get it in Sagittarius. And in your natal 12th house, it's about doing things out of the public and exploring and knocking shoulders with people from different cultures, learning new languages, focusing in on esotericism, religion, your philosophy. So you're driven towards expanding your mind, body, spirit, and soul in a very adventurous, uplifting, spirited way with Mars in the natal 12th house. So for the Capricorn rising signs, you may be having some really optimistic moments, immersing yourself with different cultures and diverse people. You may also be withholding, because it is the 12th house, your values and your moral and ethical compass with Mars in the 12th house. And that could be because there could be some conflict or tension that is going on around you or with others with this transit. So pretty lively, lots of stuff going on in your natal 12th house. Chart ruler Saturn in the natal 3rd house squares the 12th. So there can be tension in, I've got to do what I've got to do in my community and my daily round with my siblings and traveling and learning. But there could be something luring you out of the community, maybe withdrawing from family or education or travel because you want to just tune in to you. So that can be a nuanced combination to maneuver with for the whole month, with Mars in the 12th, scoring off with chart ruler and Neptune in the natal 3rd house. On the 5th, we have Mars sextile Pluto and our first illumination of November, which is a full moon in Taurus at 13 degrees. And that's in your natal 5th house of leisure, pleasure pursuits, places and people you connect with that have a meeting of minds with you, whether that's through recreation, entertainment, or intimacy. The natal 5th house is where we get our adrenaline pumping, and a full moon on the 5th of November is certainly quite delicious when it is in its sign of exaltation, Taurus. So with Mars filtering in the background, sextiling Pluto, this can be a very interesting alignment, but a beneficial one. Mars is very powerful. So is Pluto. And when they connect well, which they are, which is what a sextile indicates through astrology, then we have an easy connection for a powerful transformation. So a powerful transformation with a full moon in the natal 5th house of joy and pleasure could be quite the moment where you get to enjoy embodying sensuality and sensual experiences and environments. And with Mars sextiling Pluto, this can be a profound conversation, an intimate connection that literally blows your socks off, and maybe even consider on the 5th making some sort of connection or relationship in your life that has been simmering on the burner for a little while, and you may want to escalate something informal into something formal with a significant connection in your life on the 5th. Quite delightful. On the 6th, the next day, we've got Venus ingressing into Scorpio, your natal 11th house, where Venus is in detriment. So Venus is like, I'm struggling in Scorpio, and Venus will be here until the 30th. And we also have the Sun co-present in Scorpio as well. So Venus is at top speed in the solar system at the moment. So she's flying through your natal 11th house. So your natal 11th house, Capricorn rising signs, is your benefactors, people that support you, allies, alliances, people that we collaborate with in a social capacity. Venus is in that natal 11th house briefly from the 6th to the 30th, quite quick for Venus. With Venus being in detriment, what we have here is Venus being in a zodiac sign that is not complementary to her nature. It's ruled by Mars, and Mars being the ruler of this transit where Venus is in detriment, Mars is in the 12th house of Sagittarius, doing really well. Mars does very well in this zodiac sign. So I think we've got a bit of a theme going on here, even though you're pursuing what you love behind closed doors and maybe clashing with commitment and your environments, with Mars doing so well in Sagittarius, ruling over Venus, being the dispositor, even though she's in detriment. I'm getting archetypally this transit for you being hard to distinguish who are your allies and benefactors and your social connections. Who are they? Do you need to interact with people that are more than surface value? You're seeking depth in connection here. You're seeking long-term commitments with Venus in the 11th house of your social connections. So you're not seeking anything fair weather. Mars in the 12th, ruling Venus in the 11th, indicates that you might be really seeking and trying to unify with people that have more soul and depth to their character. So I'm not too concerned about Venus being in detriment because Mars, the dispositor, is in the 12th house, functioning very, very well for you. So interesting with Venus in the 11th house for Capricorn rising signs for the month of November. On the 7th, we have Venus squaring off with Pluto and retrograde Uranus in Gemini, retrograding back into Taurus. Okay, so let's quickly recap Venus square Pluto first before we get into Uranus's retrograde back into Taurus one last time, where he spent over 6 years in your 5th house. Okay, so Venus square Pluto. This is classic tension with exposing a secret, getting too close for comfort. You may feel like you need to maybe put up some boundaries on the 7th of November, because it could feel like you're getting a little hot under the collar, and it could be a little maybe like something or someone is encroaching on your personal values or personal space. So it could just be like an odd, uncomfortable connection on the 7th that you may need to navigate with Venus in your 11th house going off with Pluto in your 2nd house. And with Uranus retrograding back into your natal 5th house of Taurus before he goes direct February 3rd next year at 27 degrees. Uranus is bringing your natal 5th house of recreation and leisure and intimacy a dose of reality. And this can be quite a punchy last look, if you will, for Uranus in your natal 5th house. The 5th house where we get our adrenaline pumping and we can create things of our own volition, and we create things that we enjoy. Uranus will not ingress back into Gemini, the 6th house, until April 25 next year, where he'll stay put into 2032. Okay, so let's talk about retrograde Uranus going back into Taurus. Now, it's not going to be a subtle transit when it comes to what you create and what you love really being shaken up in a profound way that will have you fence sitting. Am I in or am I out? Do I love this or do I not love this? So it's going to be very subjective to all Capricorn rising signs out there, how they work with this transit. But if you are constantly going through massive fluctuations and pendulum swings that are very violent and chaotic, connected to relationships, intimacy, and things like leisure and recreation, then it's time to be okay with going, I need to draw some firm lines in the sand with concrete kind of opportunity with retrograde Uranus back in Taurus. And the reason we need to do that is because we're seeking stability in Taurus, the earth embodied sensual zodiac sign Taurus. Taurus almost demands pleasure. And in your house of pleasure, the things that tick your boxes, with Uranus really shaking things up here, you're going to easily identify what's good enough for you and what's not, kind of transit with what you engage with in your own free will when it comes to filling your own cups up. So very interesting with Uranus going back into Taurus, the fifth house from the 7th of November moving forward. Okay, on the 9th, Mercury officially begins his third and final retrograde of 2025 in your natal 12th house at 6 degrees. On the 11th, Jupiter begins its annual retrograde in Cancer, your 7th house of relationships at 25 degrees, and Jupiter won't go direct until March 10, 2026 at 15 degrees. So this is your natal 7th house of relationships, marriage, and other people. And that natal 7th house, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer in the moon sign. We've got a very content Jupiter. I did a separate video for the Capricorn rising signs about Jupiter's transit in Cancer for you on my YouTube page. Just scroll back until you get to around the end of May, mid-June. You'll find that video where I really went deep into that transit for you as a Capricorn rising sign. But Jupiter goes into a retrograde annually for about 5.5 months. He's a slower moving planet. So when Jupiter goes into a retrograde where he's exalted in the 7th house of marriage, relationships, and other people, then Jupiter when he's retrograde, like every other planet, when they're retrograde, they're closer to the planet Earth. And with Jupiter retrograde, we have Jupiter very bright in the sky, and Jupiter, when he's in a retrograde phase, gives you an opportunity to really take in how you've been connecting with significant relationships in your life. Have you been their support system? Have they been your support system? Is there equal give and take? Is everyone on the same page? Jupiter's simply saying, hey, I've been here since mid 2025. Things have gotten bigger with you in relationships, getting new laws and structures in place between you and others. And now you get to figure out if there needs to be a little retweaking. Like any significant relationships in life, business, intimate, or otherwise, Capricorn rising signs, is there just a little bit more that needs to be sorted out? And what's interesting for you as a Capricorn rising sign, that 7th house sextiles the 5th house, where Uranus is now retrograde in your house of intimacy, recreation and leisure, pursuits, things that you create. And in the sextile, I'm getting for Capricorn rising signs, you're trying to iron out a significant connection and how it's having a knock-on effect to your sense of joy. So with Jupiter retrograding in the 7th house, which is an angular part of your natal chart, so super important transit. Planets on our angular parts of our natal chart being 7, 10, 1, or 4 are pretty punchy. They're like megaphones. They're like loud speakers. They have something to say. So what Jupiter is saying to Capricorn rising signs is, can you handle the heat or do you need to get out of the kitchen? And that simply means because maybe relationships, business, intimate or otherwise, are getting bigger, more demanding, or maybe you are getting a lot more focused in what direction you want to go with a connection. And it might be getting really, really down to it now that Jupiter's retrograde, where you're needing to nut things out. Get on the same page, get some structure, and your intimate direction with someone, business or otherwise, in a straight line. Get it on the same page, kind of retrograde with Jupiter in Cancer. Retrograde from the 11th of November before he stations direct in March on the 10th at 15 degrees. Very interesting. On the 12th, retrograde Mercury conjuncts Mars at 6 degrees in Sagittarius in your 12th house. What a great day to recover missing information. Eyes and ears peeled on the 12th. That almost gives you a moment to go, I know exactly where I'm going now. when it comes to seeking out and dropping into your morals and ethical compasses about your philosophy and life direction and how you want to explore and open up to the world with mind, body, spirit, and soul behind closed doors. The 12th key date for inspiration and information that's really beneficial for you. On the 17th, we have our first grand water trine of November. These have been happening in succession since October. It's been beautiful. We have the Sun trine retrograde Jupiter trine your chart ruler Saturn, Capricorn rising signs. Yummy. And we also, on the same day of the 17th, with this grand water trine, we have Pluto sextiling retrograde Mercury. Pretty fascinating combination. So this grand water trine is happening in social houses for you. So it's all social houses, the 11th house, 7th house, and 3rd house. And with the grand water trine, it's pretty easy to jump on board and get swept up in feelings and emotions in your experience on the 17th. So I like to think of this as an annual cry that we've been withholding. A DM that we know needs to happen happens on the 17th because the Sun and Jupiter are connecting directly with your chart ruler, retrograde Saturn. And with Pluto sextiling retrograde Mercury, it can be about uncovering a truth or some sort of hidden information that you've been withholding about your values or your sense of self coming to the surface quite easily on the 17th. Pretty punchy day. On the 18th, retrograde Mercury ingresses back into Scorpio. Mercury won't get direct until the end of the month. And we know that Venus is in Scorpio and the Sun. So with retrograde Mercury back in the 11th house, ruled by Mars in the 12th house of Sagittarius, I find this fascinating astrology and the archetypal significance of what I think's going on here with Mercury, at least in the 11th house with the Sun and Venus, ruled by Mars in the 12th. I think this is a great time to recover social connections and your goals and your dreams when it comes to traveling, your financial aspects and portfolio, what you want to build on, and communicating with truth and conviction kind of transit with retrograde Mercury going back into Scorpio, the 11th house, can be about Mars in the 12th house, which is about what you have value in, what you believe, your philosophy, cultural differences, travel expectations or directions that you'd like to go regarding traveling, or even learning, knowledge building. Fascinating with Mercury back in Scorpio in the 11th house with Venus and the Sun ruled by Mars. Far out. The 21st is such a busy day and a lot of action going on with the Sun, actually. Okay, so on the 21st, we have our second lunation of November, and it's a new moon where the moon is in full in Scorpio at 28 degrees, and retrograde Mercury is Kazemi. And this action's happening in your natal 11th house. Then the Sun opposes retrograde Uranus in Taurus and trines retrograde Neptune in Pisces. And then the Sun ingresses into Sagittarius, the 12th house, joining Mars until December 21st, when the solstice begins. So the 21st is a pretty standout day. So the moon's traditionally in full in Scorpio. So the moon's going, I'd rather be in Taurus, where there was a full moon on the 5th of November. So the moon gets a little bit melancholy and a little uncomfortable about being in Scorpio, because Scorpio is about going deep, y'all. You know, no bullshit about Scorpio. And the depths of Scorpio is significant, and that's where we get a lot of association of Scorpio being secret and clandestine. You know, hard to get to the truth. There's lots and lots of layers, feelings and emotions that need to be extracted to understand something in Scorpio. So with the new moon, we're talking about a new environment, a new connection, social connection for you as a Capricorn rising sign. And that feels right on time to move in towards a new future. You may be picking up a new ally or benefactor that supports you in a professional capacity, or reconnect with an old dream or goal that sets you in a steady pace towards executing that goal or that plan on the 21st with a new moon in Scorpio in full at 28 degrees with retrograde Mercury cazimi. With the Sun opposing retrograde Uranus and then trining retrograde Neptune in Pisces. Sun opposed retrograde Uranus in Taurus, your fifth house, and then trining retrograde Neptune in Pisces, your third house. This could feel like you're being taken away from your environment, like you're being maybe wanting to withdraw from people, places, and things while you focus on what you need to focus on with this new beginning that you can engage with at your own free will, of course. But this practical new beginning in Scorpio is an emotional new beginning that needs to happen, that's going to set your eyes on a prize and a target. And we need to keep in our back pockets, astrologically, that the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are being disposited by Mars and Sagittarius. So think, I need to do something on my own. This is where I philosophically believe the direction I need to go in to feel good about myself in my own skin. And I may have to detach and let go of fair weather people, places, or things that I know are dragging the chain, and I've been fantasy land about it. I've got to let go and let be. So I think it's quite a new moon for the Capricorn rising signs. And with the Sun ingressing into the 12th house with Mars for 4 weeks, well, the Sun always brings intelligence to the 12th house of things that we do in isolation, or where we get stuck, where we lose ourselves, whether it's intentionally or we can feel like we're being overrun by pretty big players in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is ruled by planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is in a retrograde in Cancer in his 7th house. And with this, with the Sun and Mars now, two planets in your 12th house being Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter retrograde, this could be going back over and reestablishing, what's right and what's my fit when it comes to relationships and other people in my life, what's working and what's not. And with the Sun in the 12th house, you get to see very clearly and make intelligent decisions about your future and in your own good time kind of transit, with the Sun in the 12th with Mars. On the 25th, Venus conjuncts retrograde Mercury at 22 degrees in that natal 11th house, that social house. Well, with Venus conjunct retrograde Mercury, it's pretty telling archetypally that your heart's desire is getting met with verbal action, and it's go time on the 25th, when a green light appears and you feel confident regarding an ally connection, dream or goal, or a social environment or connection with Venus conjunct retrograde Mercury, returning to inspiration, returning to information that levels something out on the 25th. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. On the 26th, we have our second grand water trine of November, and we got Venus setting this off. She's trining retrograde Jupiter, and she's trining your chart ruler, retrograde Saturn in Pisces. And the 26th is the day that your chart ruler Saturn officially stations direct. Okay. With Venus setting off the grand water trine, it's easy to get into an emotional flow. Communicate from the heart. Say it with our chest, be in our feels, and in the social houses, then we're easily going down memory lane, talking with people quite organically. We're walking the walk, we're talking the talk, we're connecting, and it might be quite deep with Venus now setting off this trine. Now, more importantly, and we're not removing the significance of the beautiful groundwater trine, but it is important. It's big astrological news. Saturn is stationing direct. So, with your chart ruler now going direct, moving forward, leading into the next few months before your chart ruler Saturn ingresses back into Aries, into your natal fourth house, Saturn, your chart ruler, has you focused, determined. You have built a muscle in understanding how you work within environments, your travel and educational direction, siblings and extended family members. Something is being almost settled into a new direction that benefits you. And if you felt like you've been through the ringer for the last 2 years and it comes to siblings and travel and education in your community and how you commute, you wouldn't be far off it. Saturn's been here for 2 years in Pisces and now wrapping up this cycle. So Saturn brings you knowledge and can see what structures work and what structures don't, connected to your natal third house. And then you get to be an ambassador and an advocate for you. What's your moral and ethical compass about? What's your standards and what's not? What structures can stay? What structures need to be progressed on or completely eliminated? So you'll have a firm grip, if you will, on your reality and how your day-to-day environment is impacting you spiritually, physically, and mentally. How's your body, spirit, and mental health responding in kind to all of this exacerbation of Pisces? And since the last 2 years, you get to pick your lanes, if you will, with past experience. You get to up the ante and level things up regarding your standards and structures moving forward with conviction. Really nice, with Saturn stationing direct in Pisces on the 26th with a groundwater trine. A challenging day on the 27th. Venus opposes retrograde Uranus. And then Mercury officially stations direct as well at 20 degrees in Scorpio. So the tension and contention here on the 27th with Venus opposing retrograde Uranus is returning to an old problem, an old story that needs to be once and for all hit on the head. So this is about showing up and stepping up to the plate and going there when you are presented with a conflict on the 27th, With Mercury stationing direct at 20 degrees in Scorpio, this is also very good because your chart ruler Saturn is direct in Pisces and the 11th house trines the third house. So this is really good. So Mercury direct indicates that you're ready to fire on all cylinders and take action towards new travel opportunities, financial opportunities, intellectual pursuits, and intellectual stimulation regarding groups of people, allies, and benefactors that can escalate you and advance you in a positive light with conviction and consolidation, with Mercury stationing direct in Scorpio at 20 degrees. Really quite nice. On the 30th, Venus trines a retrograde Neptune. Yes, time to release and let go of fantasy regarding siblings, travel, education, extended family members, and your community. This would be the optimal time to disintegrate distraction in your natal third house and get creative and connect with creative, inspirational people. So this is like tilling the soil around you emotionally and intellectually and creatively, and really being aware of who's got Team Capricorn Rising's back and who doesn't on the 30th. Then Venus will leave Scorpio and ingress into Sagittarius, your 12th house, joining Mars and the Sun until December 24. So you got a little stellium party going on in your 12th house. Venus and Sagittarius just values exploration and traveling. So you may be more focused on knowledge building, more so than you have been with the Sun and Mars in the 12th. Ruled by retrograde Jupiter, relationships, business, intimate or otherwise, in your 7th house of Cancer, then this could be returning to old connections, old faces, old environments, old connections that really do fill you up and make you feel all warm and fuzzy, with Venus in the 12th with Mars and the Sun ruled by retrograde Jupiter in the 7th house of Cancer, being relationships, other people, and even the house of marriage. That's your astrology for the month of November, Capricorn rising signs. I hope you have a stellar month. If you'd like to work one-on-one with your Cosmic Girl, I can be contacted at the email being cosmicgirl101@protonmail.com. Till next time, Cappies, stay cosmic.